Joe Burrow, like the hype was there for Joe Burrow because what he did at LSU, but then they got into these scrimmages in Cincinnati, and I have a little bit of a one of those lists of like AFC North beat reporters, and boy, that thing blew up during this scrimmage because apparently Joe Burrow manifested into a football god under the freeway of Cincinnati. So Ace, tell us about that.
I mean, it was kind of one of those situations where it's like, okay, we've got Joe Burrow. He's had this amazing season. Is this guy the real deal? And initially, things kind of started off a little bumpy. AJ Green went down with a hamstring injury. John Ross ended up leaving training camp to help his kid, take care of his family. And it was just a rocky situation. Like, even the day before that actual scrimmage, like, there were reports of him throwing interceptions, defensive linemen getting to him. It just looked bad. Now, the thing that really made me proud was after that practice, he talked about, there's going to be days like this. We got to figure out how to adjust and come back. And the very next day, when he's going against all of our defensive starters, now, mind you, this guy did not have AJ Green. He did not have John Ross. Like, he literally was playing with like Auden Tate, Mike Thomas, like not guys that are going to really like pop off of the radar essentially. And he just killed them. Like 9 for 10 first drive. The one missed pass was a drop touchdown pass. Or drop touchdown catch by CJ Uzoma, and he's just lighting it up. And it's just been like that ever since then. And today he was lighting it up as well. So we're very excited in Cincinnati. We're really looking forward to it. It's seeming like he's miles better than Andy Dalton. But we have to see this in the real game. But from what I've seen with him, from his ability to not only – and that's what Andy Dalton never did. He can never make guys play to a certain level. And today he was out there making practice squad guys come up and make plays against William Jackson III and some of these other guys. So that's been something that's exciting. But the other part about training camp isn't just Joe Burrow. It's Auden Tate. He threw those 2 touchdowns in that scrimmage to Auden Tate. And Auden Tate, from what I've heard and from what I've looked at on Twitter, apparently is the MVP of Bengals training camp and has been catching everything. And apparently him and Burrow are really on the same page. But between Joe Burrow, between him and then today getting back AJ Green on the field running full speed. So they just really did that just for precaution, just to keep him safe. And then John Ross comes back today. He looks good. He's, popping off the radar. And then T. Higgins was another injury that a lot of people didn't know about that kind of went under the radar. He had a hamstring injury as well. So he kind of sat out and was kind of limited in a sense. And today, I think he started to gear up and he's starting to make crazy catches. So honestly, it's really looking scary, and Joe Burrow is looking as advertised. And if he is that good, you might want to watch out.
Yeah, I think the way I've been evaluating this is so far, I think the Bengals have been one of the only teams in the AFC North that's really been trending up. The Browns, I think after the Grant Delpit injury, which we're going to get into later, they're kind of trending down. The Steelers are kind of just flatlining right now. There's really nothing one way or the other big time about the Steelers.
There's no reports. Yeah.
There's no reports, nothing coming out of there. And, with Baltimore, everything going on, like they'll be fine ultimately, but like this stuff doesn't happen for a 16-0 team, which is like, that's where I was like, okay, it had to deflate a little bit from where it was at. But speaking from a perspective of guys who are going to have to go up against Joe Burrow, are you guys kind of, after hearing some of these reports, hearing what Joe Burrow's doing, making plays, things that Andy Dalton didn't do, making a difference there, are any of you guys kind of worried about that? Him being a young stallion might be a little bit ready faster than people expect.
I mean, certainly, look, for 2020, I think no, just in the short term, right? And I talked about this when we did the schedule preview. I think the Bengals are going to be a team at the end of the year. I think if you look at what happened with Kyler Murray and that Cardinals team last year, how much better they got in the second half of the year. I'm going to forget the guy's name. The YouTube guy actually did a very good video on this the other day. But I think the Bengals can be a team like that, right? Where as the season progresses, Joe Burrow, second half of the year, a team you probably don't want to be playing, especially if you're a playoff team or fighting for that 6th or 7th wild card spot in the AFC, probably a Bengals team you don't want to be playing. Now, what I love about Burrow, and Ace, you hit on this, right? He has that kind of no care attitude, right? Or like to just kind of brush it off. Hey, I had a bad day of practice. Who cares? Next day I'm going on. We're still slinging it. We're still throwing those same passes, right? Yeah, it was intercepted yesterday. Today it's going to be a touchdown, right? That mentality that he had, I'm always drawn to quarterbacks like that. That's why actually I like Baker Mayfield going to the Browns so much back in the day. So I think he's look in that way, like he's a quarterback, right? He's the alpha quarterback that you want. Now whether or not he's gonna like look, because he went good in a couple scrimmage practices, do I think he's gonna like light it up this year? I don't know. It's hard to say. Like we've all had these training camp practices where like a guy lights it up. I remember last year I was going nuts on Locked On Steelers about Duck going 6 for 6 in one of these drills, throwing a touchdown pass. And I mean, look, Duck was a fun player, but Duck's not going to be a future Hall of Famer or anything. I think Joe Burrow much more likely than Duck to be a future Hall of Famer. So we'll see. I think look, the hard part here, is we don't even get preseason games for Burrow, right? It'd be one thing if he did this in a preseason game in an environment where he's going up against a different defense, right, and that kind of thing. Doing this in training camp practice, it's good, right? Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a bad thing that he went out there and played well, but I don't think it's you expect Joe Burrow is going to go out there on some days and light it up. This is a very, very talented quarterback.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard some people saying everyone looks good in practice, not Andy Dalton.
No. Right. I would throw in there, because I think honestly it's the other way, in my opinion, when it comes to how somebody looks like in a preseason game, how somebody looks like in practice. Because in preseason, you're running against a base defense. Like, yeah, you're playing against somebody else, but especially with what training camps are now for a team like the Bengals, who aren't really trying to put anything on live streams or anything like that. They're kind of freed up to run a little bit more of what they're actually going to run, actual NFL defenses where they're trying.
That's a good point for this year in particular.
Yeah, to disguise things. And I think it actually does matter that he's showing this against the ones like Duck doing it against Pittsburgh's 2 and 3 unit. Like, I don't know which unit he was going with last year, but I doubt he was taking reps against the 1 defense. Like, so,
it's against the twos. It's okay.
Okay, the twos, we know what that secondary is when it comes to depth. We've had that conversation. But
even worse training camp last year. There was no Minka. So the Spurs are even worse.
So for a second here, let's say that Joe Burrow is ready faster than we expect, Sonny. With that offense, with the pieces that are there, like let's not try to project if he's going to be ready. Let's just assume he is. What do you think the ceiling is for this Bengals team if Joe Burrow is somebody who could play at a Pro Bowl level?
So there's a couple of things. For me, the Bengals, the thing that worries me the most, and I talked with Ace about this a bunch, is that O-line. Because there's something that in practice nobody can do to the quarterback is touch him.
That's a fair point. So
he can be more comfortable, right? All our quarterbacks, right? Big Ben coming out of anybody knows they can beat the guy, and then what they're going to stop the play as the guy got sacked, right? There's none of that in the game, right? Somebody's going to hit him. So if that O-line can hold, well, the talent is there for the Bengals. They have good receivers, and I do believe Burrow will have a good year. If the O-line cannot hold, that's where it's going to be problematic. So I think the Bengals did fairly good on investing. Ace also know I love Jonah Williams last year. My favorite tackle coming out of the draft last year. So I think they're going to get better. Pending injuries, obviously, no wishing injuries to anybody. They should be better in the O-line. Are they good enough to compete against a D-line like the Ravens, like the Steelers? Time will tell. Can Jonah Williams, again, I think he's good, but can he hold a guy like Garrett, right? Because those are the things that are going to get Burrow starting to throw it quicker, start to throw it to a tighter window, maybe the interceptions. If that O-line plays well, I do think Joe Burrow will be Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. And the Bengals could potentially knock in that 7th seed this year. I think that is their ceiling. And if they win or lose the playoff, that really doesn't matter because coming with a rookie quarterback, making it to the playoff year 1 with no preseason, I think that will be huge. If they win that game against whoever, that's even better. But just making the playoff, that will be huge. Again, I think the Bengals will be – this is how the Bengals team is faith is O-line and how much that defense can – held the other team, right? Because that secondary, can they not give up the big plays? Can the linebackers, right? the Baltimore Ravens, they have a young linebacker core. The Bengals also, can they help on the run against the run defense? So those are the big questions for the Bengals. But in the case of Joe Burrow specifically, it's all on that O-line. Can that O-line, it's going to be better than last year, but how much better? Can they be good enough to protect and keep, for the most part, a clean pocket? If they're successful in that, Joe Burrow's going to have a great year.